And I looked over and there was just individual passes and like the misses were so bad with no defense. So I started watching. Like, okay. And then he really struggled throughout the day. Now, yesterday I thought he threw it better. So was it a bad day? Is he something ailing him? Was just the adrenaline of full practice getting to? I don't know. You would think with the guy that's been in the league 9 years, that wouldn't be the case.
A $230 million quarterback just threw back-to-back interceptions on the very first day of training camp. Not against some all-pro defense, against his own teammates. Meanwhile, the guy standing on the other sideline, a fifth-round pick most people wrote off before he even stepped on an NFL field, went 16 for 19 without a single turnover. Welcome to Cleveland, where the most expensive quarterback in football history might be watching from the bench this September. What's happening right now at Browns training camp isn't just a competition anymore. It's a full-blown crisis for Deshaun Watson and a rocket launch for Shedeur Sanders. The reports coming out of Berea are ugly for Watson and electric for Shedeur, and the gap between these two is widening every single day. Insiders are sounding alarms. Coaches are dropping hints they probably shouldn't be dropping, and the media is starting to say what Browns fans have been thinking for months. Before you go any further, drop a comment right now.
What happened is Shedeur Sanders came on so strong in those last probably 3-4 weeks of OTAs and minicamp that he made it impossible for them to go out there and make a decision right now. I think he kind of just put his nose to the grindstone and really studied that offense and got out there and did what he needed to do at the line of scrimmage, more so than he did in the...
Who should be starting week 1 for the Browns, Watson or Shedeur? Because by the end of this video, you might completely change your answer. Let's get into it. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to the deal that changed everything in Cleveland. When the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson and handed him a fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million contract, it was supposed to be the move that finally turned this franchise around. 2 years after the Browns traded for Watson and gave him a $230 million fully guaranteed contract, Cleveland was still awaiting play that resembled his Pro Bowl form with the Houston Texans. The organization bet everything on the idea that they were getting a top 5 quarterback, the kind of player who could carry a team deep into January. Instead, they got a nightmare that just kept getting worse. Watson served an 11-game suspension for violating the league's personal conduct policy after being accused by more than 24 women of sexual assault and misconduct during massage sessions. Before he even played a snap in a Browns uniform, the controversy was already swirling. And when he finally did get on the field, the results were far from what anyone expected. When he returned for the last 6 games, he ranked just 26th in the league in QBR over that span. That wasn't a blip, that became the pattern. Since signing his fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million contract in 2022, Watson has started just 19 games for the Browns, throwing 19 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Let that sink in. 19 games across 3 full seasons for a guy making nearly $50 million a year. Injuries became a recurring theme. First, the shoulder surgery that wiped out most of 2023.
Viewings back in May, I thought Shedeur was clearly behind. Went and watched the last 3 or 4 open practices. I thought he was making up ground. So I think it's pretty even right now. I don't think a lot has changed. And as far as like what this offense looks like and who's taking the lead, I think we need to get in the pads.
Then came the moment that truly felt like a turning point. Watson ruptured his Achilles on October 20th, 2024, against the Bengals, then retore the Achilles shortly thereafter. 2 Achilles ruptures in the span of just a few months. The kind of injury history that ends careers, not restarts them. Watson was coming off 2 ruptured Achilles injuries that kept him out the entirety of the 2025 season. The Browns had no choice but to move forward without him. Cleveland's front office knew they needed answers at the most important position in sports, and they couldn't wait any longer for a player whose body kept breaking down. The $230 million man had become the most expensive bench warmer in NFL history. And while Watson was rehabbing, watching from the sideline, something unexpected was happening in that very same quarterback room. A kid nobody expected to matter was quietly getting ready to flip the entire script. And the way he got to Cleveland in the first place is a story that almost nobody saw coming. Shedeur Sanders was never supposed to end up in Cleveland. He was never supposed to be a 5th-round pick at all. Before the 2025 draft, Shedeur was projected by many analysts to be a first-round talent. The arm, the poise, the bloodline. He had everything on paper. But something happened on draft night that nobody in the Sanders family expected. After tumbling down the 2025 NFL Draft Board, the Browns selected Sanders in the 5th round with the 144th overall pick. 144 picks. That's how long the entire league let the son of a Hall of Famer sit in the green room, watching name after name get called while his phone stayed silent. He was a 5th-round pick who began the season buried behind Deshaun Watson and Dillon Gabriel on the depth chart. Dayan SR, later called the journey hellish, and that wasn't hyperbole. Think about that for a second. The guy who played under the brightest spotlight in college football at Colorado, who had cameras on him every single day thanks to the Prime Video documentary, who had his father coaching him on a national stage, walked into an NFL locker room as the 4th option. Behind Watson, behind Dillon Gabriel, who was taken in the 3rd round, and behind veteran Joe Flacco, who Cleveland had signed in free agency. Sanders was drafted by a team that had 5 quarterbacks on the roster, making it a competitive offseason for the rookie to find a place on the depth chart. Most 5th-round quarterbacks in that situation never see the field. They carry a clipboard, run the scout team, and hope to make the practice squad. That was supposed to be Shedeur's reality. The league had spoken on draft night, and the message was clear. Not yet, maybe not ever. He had to wait his turn after seeing both Joe Flacco and 2025 third-round rookie Dillon Gabriel play over him. Weeks went by with Shedeur watching from the sideline, studying the playbook, absorbing everything he could from the veterans around him. Watson was reportedly chipping in beyond his recovery duties and had been especially helpful to the rookies in Gabriel and Sanders, who were working overtime to remain in the starting mix. Even Watson himself, the guy Shedeur would eventually be competing against, was mentoring him during those early months. Then the door cracked open. Injuries and then a mid-season trade of Joe Flacco led to Sanders becoming a starter by week 12. Just like that, the 5th-round pick nobody wanted got his chance. And what he did with it would start a chain reaction that's still going right now in Berea, because Shedeur Sanders didn't just fill in. He did something that changed how the entire organization viewed him, and the numbers he put up made everyone in that building sit up and pay attention. When Shedeur Sanders finally got his shot, he didn't play it safe. He walked into the starting role in week 12 and immediately started turning heads. His first career start snapped a 20-year Browns road losing streak. 20 years. No rookie quarterback in Cleveland had been able to do that. He became the first Browns rookie quarterback to win his debut start since Eric Zaire in 1995. Right out of the gate, he was making history. Sanders completed 23 of 42 passes for 364 yards with 3 touchdowns and 1 rushing score in Week 14 against the Titans, the most passing yards by a rookie in a game in 2025. He finished his rookie season completing 120 of 212 passing attempts for 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns. Those aren't MVP numbers. Nobody's arguing that. But here's the thing most people don't talk about. Look at what he was working with. He was the most pressured quarterback in the NFL, facing pressure on an NFL-high 51.4% of his dropbacks from weeks 11 to 18. Let that sit. More than half the time he dropped back to throw, somebody was in his face. The Browns' 2025 offensive line allowed an NFL-worst 45.5% quarterback pressure across the entirety of the season. The worst pass protection in football, and they handed the keys to a rookie who had 0 first-team reps before Week 12. Most quarterbacks would have crumbled behind that line. Shedeur took the hits and kept firing. He made 8 appearances that included 7 starts, completing 120 passes for 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He also recorded 21 rushes for 169 yards and a touchdown on the ground. The interceptions were there, no question. But so were the flashes. The scrambles where he broke tackles and extended plays. The deep throws that showed real arm talent. The moments where you could see something clicking behind his eyes. And then came the recognition that nobody expected. The Cleveland Browns rookie quarterback was added to the Pro Bowl as a replacement. Sanders would mark the first 5th-round pick to reach a Pro Bowl in his rookie year since Puka Nacua did it with the Los Angeles Rams. He was also the first Browns QB to be named to the Pro Bowl since Derek Anderson in 2007. A 5th-round pick. A guy who was buried on the depth chart 3 months earlier. Now standing at the Pro Bowl, rubbing shoulders with the best in the league. He had a strong performance in his first Pro Bowl appearance, throwing 2 touchdown passes and 2 two-point conversions. Shedeur didn't just show up, he showed out. And that Pro Bowl experience planted a seed. Because between the end of the season and the start of the next offseason program, something shifted inside Shedeur Sanders that would transform his entire game. The The kid who got drafted in the 5th round started carrying himself like a franchise quarterback. And when he came back to Cleveland for the offseason, everyone noticed. Most young quarterbacks head home after their rookie season, rest up, decompress, maybe hit a few celebrity events and enjoy the offseason. Shedeur Sanders did the opposite. The 24-year-old Sanders mostly stayed in Cleveland to work out over the offseason. He's been in Cleveland most of the winter, and I think that says a lot for his dedication to wanting to be an NFL quarterback and what it takes, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam said at the league meetings in March. When the owner of the franchise is going out of his way to publicly praise your work ethic, that tells you everything about the impression you're making. The front office saw it too. A day after the Browns' 2025 season ended, General Manager Andrew Berry called quarterback Shedeur Sanders a work in progress. 5 months later, at the conclusion of the Browns' offseason workout program, Berry lauded what he called phenomenal growth from the second-year passer. "I think he's had an excellent spring," Berry told 92.3 The Fan. "From work in progress to phenomenal in 5 months. That's not a small shift. That's a total reevaluation of a player's ceiling." And the work was targeted. Shedeur knew exactly what his biggest weakness was coming out of his rookie year. A recurring issue he struggled with in college continued in the pros, holding onto the ball for too long. In 2025, he averaged a 3.24-second time to throw, the highest in the NFL since he made his debut in Week 11. Sanders acknowledged the need to get the ball out quicker. That kind of self-awareness from a young quarterback is rare. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame the offensive line, even though he had every right to. He looked at the film, identified the problem, and went to work fixing it. By the time OTAs rolled around, the improvement was impossible to ignore. Onlookers described his throws as immaculate, tight spirals with anticipation and timing that hadn't been part of his game during the earlier practices. The final 3 or 4 OTA sessions were a turning point that flipped the entire narrative. Then came minicamp, and instead of leveling off, he kept stacking good days on top of good days. It stopped looking like a hot streak and started looking like genuine growth. Berry confirmed it publicly. "I think he did a phenomenal job this offseason. That really started in January and February, and then certainly as we got into having real practices in May, his growth has been tremendous. We can continue to grow there, but his progress has been impressive." Meanwhile, Watson was returning from his double Achilles injury, trying to prove he could still be the guy. Sanders is a lot fresher than Watson, who hasn't played in an NFL regular season game in over 600 days after tearing his Achilles in Week 7 of the 2024 season. Over 600 days without playing a real football game. No matter how talented you are, that kind of layoff leaves a mark. And when training camp opened, the contrast between these two quarterbacks would become impossible to deny. What happened in Berea over those first few days sent shockwaves through the entire NFL. Training camp was supposed to be Watson's chance to silence the doubters. The veteran had been rehabbing for over a year, and the organization gave him every opportunity to prove he was still the franchise quarterback. He took the bulk of the first-team reps on the opening day of Cleveland Browns training camp and struggled to find rhythm. Multiple interceptions, high floaters, and missed throws defined the session. Unofficial counts had Watson completing roughly half of his attempts, while turning the ball over twice in 11 on 11 work. It wasn't just the incompletions, it was how bad they looked. Cornerbacks Denzel Ward and Damery Mathis both came away with picks on consecutive throws. Deep balls sailed incomplete, and timing on intermediate routes often looked off. Back-to-back interceptions, against his own defense. In the very first practice of camp, the first was on a bootleg where he had Tylan Wallace on a crossing route and left the ball behind without pace, easily intercepted by Denzel Ward. The second interception to Damery Mathis was on a play-action concept where Watson stared down his deep dig and threw it without seeing Mathis at all. These weren't just bad throws. These were the kind of mistakes that make a coaching staff start having uncomfortable conversations. Now look at the same day through Shedeur's lens. The Browns' QB tracker from day 1 of training camp showed Shedeur Sanders going 16 of 19 with 0 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, while Deshaun Watson went 12 of 22 with 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. 16 of 19, not a single turnover. On the same field in the same conditions against the same defense. The difference was night and day. And it didn't get better for Watson. Day 2 was reportedly even rougher than day 1. The struggles compounded. By day 4, the numbers were truly alarming. Watson had been a turnover machine through 4 practices, throwing 6 interceptions in 4 days. Further, Watson primarily took snaps with the second team on Saturday, and he still managed to record an alarming 3 interceptions, 6 picks in 4 days, and 3 of those came while working with the second team offense. That's not rust. That's a pattern. Meanwhile, Sanders just threw his first interception of camp, and his 4 passing touchdowns topped Watson and Dylan Gabriel. The 2025 NFL draft pick also had the most passing attempts at 91, and Sanders maintained a strong 70.3% completion percentage. While Watson was spiraling, Shedeur was climbing. The gap between these two wasn't closing. It was widening with every rep, every throw, every snap. New head coach Todd Monken has downplayed the rough start, calling the mistakes part of the learning process in a brand new scheme. Still, the visual of Watson's early throws fueled conversation across social media and among fans who have waited years for consistent production. Monken was doing his best to keep things neutral publicly. But behind closed doors, the coaching staff was watching the same film everyone else was. And the things they started saying, even in their carefully measured way, painted a very clear picture of where this competition was actually headed. NFL coaches are trained to say nothing. They deflect, they give non-answers, they talk about competition and process without ever revealing who they actually prefer. But if you listen closely enough, you can always find the truth hiding between the lines. And right now in Cleveland, the hints are everywhere. Browns head coach Todd Monken stated, "Obviously, we will alternate them just like we did in the spring with Deshaun and Shedeur with the ones. On the surface, that sounds even-handed. Both guys get reps, fair competition, but watch what actually happened on the field. By day 4, Shedeur Sanders took all the first-team reps, all of them not split, not alternating, all. Actions speak louder than coach speak, and that action was deafening." Monken laid it out plainly. "Ultimately, I'm not going to decide who the starter is. They decide by their play. Their play decides who the starter is." Read that again carefully. He's not protecting Watson's job. He's not guaranteeing anything. He's saying the best player wins. And right now, based on every report coming out of Berea, the best player is wearing number 12. The position coaches have been even more revealing. Quarterbacks coach Mike Bajakian, the guy who works with these players every single day on mechanics, footwork, and reads, has apparently praised how far Shedeur has come in a relatively short window. He's pointed to improvements in pocket presence and the ability to process coverages faster than he did earlier in the offseason. For a position coach to speak that openly about a second-year player during an active competition with a veteran tells you something significant about how the staff actually views this race. There's a feeling that a significant part of the Browns' locker room would prefer to see the team giving Sanders an opportunity to build upon what he showed as a rookie in 2025. Having the locker room on your side can go a long way in how a coaching staff perceives winning probability. The locker room factor is something people underestimate. When your teammates believe in you, it changes the energy of an entire building. And right now, the building is buzzing about Shedeur. Once Monken was officially designated as the Browns' new head coach back in late January, Sanders was quick to connect with him, and Sanders' porcelain horse head gift to Monken for his birthday became a viral sensation. Sanders broke the ice wonderfully with Monken, and all signs point to the duo having a good relationship. That relationship matters more than people realize. A head coach who trusts you, who feels connected to you, who sees you putting in the work every single day, that coach is going to lean toward you when the decision gets tough. And right now, Monken doesn't just see a talented player in Shedeur. He sees a guy who's invested in the program, in the culture, and in earning every single rep he gets. Offensive coordinator Travis Switzer told reporters, "I don't know that we have somebody who's ahead. We're pleased with both their progress, and all the guys are doing a nice job." That was during OTAs. Diplomatic and safe. But since training camp opened, the on-field results have spoken louder than any press conference ever could. And the voices from outside the building are starting to pile on in a way that makes this feel less like a competition and more like a coronation. When the insiders inside the building start telling a story, that's one thing. You can write it off as a bad week, a small sample, the natural ups and downs of camp. But when the national voices start echoing the exact same narrative, that's when you know the tide has truly shifted. And right now, the media is turning hard in Shedeur's direction. Colin Cowherd, a guy who has never been shy about bold quarterback takes, has reportedly weighed in on Shedeur's camp performance. He's suggested that the rookie looks more polished and more ready than the pre-draft evaluations gave him credit for. Cowherd has built an entire career on identifying quarterback traits that translate to long-term NFL success, And when he starts leaning toward a second-year player over a proven veteran, fans and front offices notice. Chris Carter has also reportedly shared his perspective. With his background as a former receiver who has spent years analyzing quarterback play, his analysis carries a unique credibility. Carter has apparently pointed to Shedeur's poise and ability to make quick decisions as evidence that he's not just keeping pace with Watson, but potentially pulling ahead in a way that could force Cleveland's hand sooner than expected. And then there's the voice that might carry the most weight of all in Cleveland. Browns legend Joe Thomas has said Shedeur Sanders can become the franchise guy. When a Hall of Fame caliber offensive lineman who spent his entire career in Cleveland looks at a young quarterback and sees franchise potential, that resonates on a completely different level. Thomas isn't a hot take artist. He's one of the most respected voices in Browns history, and he's putting his credibility behind Shedeur's future. Sanders made the Pro Bowl as a rookie last year after going 3-4 in his 7 starts, and is already one of the most polarizing players in the entire league. That polarization is part of what makes this story so compelling. The Sanders name carries weight, controversy, attention, and pressure everywhere it goes. The documentary series at Colorado, the social media spotlight, Day in SR's presence at everything. Some people see all of that and dismiss Shedeur as a product of hype. But the people who are actually watching him throw, the coaches, the scouts, the beat reporters standing 10 feet from the line of scrimmage, they're seeing something real. Watson, a 2017 first-round pick, is entering the final year of a 5-year, $230 million contract, hoping to revive his career after years of injuries and bad play. Sanders, entering his second year in the NFL after being drafted in the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, is determined to prove he's the franchise quarterback he was once billed to be. This isn't just a training camp battle anymore. This is a generational shift happening in real time, the old guard fading out, the new blood rising up, and every single practice report from this point forward is going to be analyzed under a microscope, because Cleveland is watching, the league is watching, and the answer to who starts week 1 might already be staring everyone in the face. A few months ago, nobody was seriously talking about Shedeur Sanders as the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback. Watson was the presumed guy. The contract, the experience, the name, it all pointed to him. But football doesn't care about contracts. It doesn't care about what you did 5 years ago or how much money is sitting in your bank account. It cares about what you do when you step between those white lines, and right now, Watson can't stop throwing the ball to the wrong team, while Shedeur looks like he's been running this offense his entire life. Watson is entering the final season of his fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million contract. This is the last chapter of that deal, and it might end with him watching from the sideline as a 5th-round pick he once mentored takes his job. Every practice from here on out is going to be scrutinized, every throw analyzed, every decision debated by millions of fans online. This is the most compelling quarterback competition in the entire NFL right now, and it's only getting more intense. The question isn't whether Shedeur belongs anymore. The question is whether Watson can stop the bleeding before it's too late.